I feel like Tizo, I'm back on that bullshit. If he talk reckless and empty the full clip, I don't sip no lean and I don't pop no bars. Shorty, she on me, she think I'm a star. I'm chasing this money, I really can't stop. All these bitches won't suck on my cock. If she cannot pay me, I don't want the top. Frosty, he blowing, he cannot be stopped.
Okay, on some shit, Jet. I'm gonna be completely honest. I'm probably only gonna get my phone back for like today. Or, I've had it for 3 days, but I was just a little bit too lazy. Which was technically unfair, but I don't really care. Now, you saw the title. This is What If Deku Had Absorption. Now, unlike my first what ifs or my past what ifs, I won't make this ability OP. Actually, I'll make it a pretty weak, quirk, at least in the beginning. Now, first off, Izuku, his quirk would allow him to absorb anything around him, even human lifespan, and allow himself to be healed. Now, he only used this to ever heal himself if he was actually injured. Like, he never really got what could have been used except for healing. I mean, maybe he could constantly heal himself inside of a battle against a person with a stronger quirk, but it wouldn't really be useful since, he doesn't have super strength. He kind of only has the ability to heal. So he kind of threw that one out the window. Now, one day, he comes back home, and he goes to sleep. Now, as he goes to sleep, he then inside of his mindscape, he then sees a person inside of red and black, and then a person in blue and black. Now, he looks at the guy's hand, and it looks like smoke coming off of his hand, which he doesn't get why smoke is coming off of his hand, but it looks a lot like his quirk. Now, the man then walks over to a random pipe inside the ground, which Izuku found this weird because the ground looked empty, but the pipe had smoke coming off of it. Now, the man then put his arm near the smoke, and the smoke then started to absorb inside of his hand, and smoke then started to cover around his hand, and then it gets absorbed. Basically, it goes into his arm. Now, he found this weird, and the man pointed his arm towards him, and it looked like smoke was gathering up and turning into a fiery type smoke. Izuku then turned around and started running away. Before he could, he got hit by he then got hit by the ball of smoke and fire. As he got hit by this, he then wakes up. Which, no, I don't have a script for this. I'm just making this up off the top of my head. Now, as he then wakes up, he says, wow, that was weird. He then decides to go to school. Now, the thing about the whole life force thing, as long as he doesn't drain life force for more than 20 seconds, it doesn't actually affect how long a person lives. It literally just drains stamina at that point. So 20 seconds or more will drain life force and take years off of, or maybe even months off of a life. Now, of course, he gets bullied by Bakugo, and Bakugo blows up his book. And this was after he bumped into Bakugo on accident while making his way to his seat. Now, the teacher then says, settle down, settle down. we can't have any of that on the last day of school. It's supposed to be all fun, you know? No bullying, just having fun and being with friends. Now, this is after the whole UA thing, telling who's gonna go to UA, which was, of course, Bakugo and Deku. Now, Deku tries to leave class and he tries to speed off, but as he does, he then senses that someone is following him. He then proceeds to walk faster and faster and faster, but this person gets faster. And eventually, when the hall is cleared, this person then starts running behind him and then punches him in the face. Well, punches him in the face after he looks behind him. This person then can be seen as Bakugo. Now, Bakugo says, a quirkless nerd trying to get into UA. You might as well just throw yourself off the roof of the building at this point. Being a hero was no joke, Izuku. He then says, if you ever think you can become a hero, maybe you should just throw yourself off the roof and maybe get a quirk inside of your next life. Now, as Bakugo's on the floor, Deku's on the floor, Bakugo then explodes him in the stomach, which this causes a cut to form on his stomach because of the sheer force of the explosion. Now Izuku's screaming out in pain, and Bakugo and his goons then start running off. Now inside of this one, I'm going to say Bakugo is a little bit more violent. Like, he would actually want to, like, full-on kill Izuku if he got in his way. So, Izuku then touches the floor and starts to absorb the floor, which heals his cut. He then gets back up, and he goes outside. Now, he sees a coil by the government. Well, inside of what I'm referencing off of, it will be the DUP, but it's just from the government. At this point, condoids haven't been discovered yet. Now, he would punch the coil multiple times. He would punch it and 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 punch it, just getting more and more angry as he keeps on going. Now, on his last punch, this then caused a spark to form, which then Izuku kind of walks back a little bit because he doesn't want to shock himself on accident. Now, he then gets closer and he was like, what is that? And then he gets shocked by it. And this angers Izuku, and then he says, you piece of crap, and then kicks it, which then causes it to explode. Well, its top to explode, launching Izuku back. Now, this didn't cause any physical damage, but it could have. Now, this did knock the wind out of him, so he walks over to it, seeing this blue type of energy coming off of it. Now, he waves his hand through this energy, and he's like, well, it feels like I'm not using my power, but it's still being absorbed in the tiniest bit. Now, he puts his hand over it, and this time, his hand starts to absorb the power. And then he gets this vision. Now, the smoke power that he saw before was his main power. I'm going to say he's a remnant, or not remnant, but sort of a hybrid of all of them. Now, he then gets this vision of him running really fast. And by fast, I'm talking about, like, around his body is kind of like the speed force coming off of the Flash, like the lightning, but instead it looks more like neon. And when he stops, he can shoot energy that could either subdue someone with controlled amount of power or obliterate someone with, an uncontrolled amount of power. Now, this vision then fades away and he goes back to the real world. Now, he sees the energy going around his hands and he falls to the ground. Now, someone then finds Izuku and calls, the ambulance, because it's just a person on the ground with a giant machine of energy basically destroyed. So, you can put two and two together. Now, he wakes up inside the hospital and he gets up. Now, the doctors say it was weird because as they were putting basically all of the electrical stuff around him, or putting him inside the bed and trying to put the needle inside of his arm, as they moved his arm upwards to put the needle in, he then started to absorb the TV or the neon, a neon looking energy coming from the TV or the machine. Which he gets up and he's like, okay. Now he knows he's not hurt because first off, he doesn't feel hurt. Second off, if he would have gotten hurt that badly, he would have absorbed something, but it would have still been enough pain to knock him out. Now he gets up and he realizes how late it is. It's about 8 p.m., which isn't really that late, but he usually gets home at 3 p.m., which means he's hours late. Now, he then starts to run home. Now, as he does, he goes faster and faster and faster and faster until eventually a neon-type energy surrounds his body, and at this point, he's moving so fast that he's nothing but a blur. Also, if you were to look directly at him, you would be blinded. So, he almost blinded a few people. Now, as he's running and running and running, he can't really control his speed at first. So, he sees a building and he tries to jump off of the building. But as he tries this, he runs up the wall. And before it can kick off, he realizes he's already 7 feet up the wall, which everything around him is moving slower, but it doesn't exactly mean he can control his speed. Now, he's going up and up and up and up and up until he launches off the wall. And now he's feet into the air and he falls back down. Now, as he hits the ground, he then feels one of his bones break. And he sees one of his ribs outside of his body, which at this point he's screaming out in pain. But then the neon type energy then shoots off of his body, then comes back into his body, pushing his bone back inwards and healing his wound. He finds this weird. He gets back up, but the wound's still sore, but it's healed. So he finds that weird, and he continues to run and run and run and run. Now, as he continues to run and run and run and run, he then finds his way back to his house. Now, his mom basically just got the call, and by the time she got to the phone, he was already home, which means that he was moving at a speed that was so fast that he was able to fall to the ground, hit the ground, heal back up instantly, and as she picks up the phone, he's instantly there, which means he's either going the speed of sound or just close to the speed of light, which, just so I don't make him too OP at this point, I'm going to say the speed of sound, because, I don't want him to go that fast. That would technically make him able to run across the world on accident, which wouldn't exactly be okay since, he'd run across the desert, probably get stuck inside the desert. Now, anyway, his mom then grounds him literally on the last day of school, and he's like, it wasn't my fault. And she doesn't listen to him, so he just lays inside of his bed and goes to sleep. Now, as he goes to sleep, he then proceeds to see this woman this time. Now, her arms are glowing, and she then runs inside of a circle with the same energy that was coming off of his body. So he gets closer to her, but as he gets closer, she gets farther. He then proceeds to see a billboard, which he finds extremely weird, and then she puts her hand near it and then absorbs the neon from the billboard. Now, then the dream starts to fade away. Now, he then comes back to consciousness, well, in the morning, after he was done sleeping. Now, he gets up and his mom asks, I don't know why ask is so hard to say for me, but asks him to get some groceries. Now, he says, and he's running at this point, like running. Now, this time, since there was countless on the news, like there were countless amounts of people that almost went blind and were close to permanent eye damage because of his neon. So he decides to run on the roofs of, his town. Now, as he's running, he goes past the store. So as he does this, he runs back to the store and gets his groceries. Now, before he's about to leave the grocery store, he hears something from a alley. He hears a girl being robbed. Now, he says, hey, can you stop? I mean, like, come on now, bro. Just get a job. Come on. Now, the guy says, kid, get out of here before there's a problem. Now, he then says, ooh, a problem. A problem. He then says, we about to have a problem if you don't shut your bitch ass up. Now, the guy then says, who do you think you're talking to, kid? Izuku then proceeds to say, your bitch ass. That's who I'm talking to. Now the man then points his gun at Izuku. And Izuku says, chill. And then the guy puts 4 shots into Izuku. Now, he thought this was a fake gun, but I forgot what gun it was, but there's a gun that looks like a toy gun. Like, there's a toy gun that looks exactly like a real gun. And basically, he thought that this was the toy version, but apparently it was the real one. Now, the guy then turns around to the girl, and she's basically screaming at this point. She's screaming. She's like, you just shot a 14-year-old. What the fuck is wrong with you? Now, as she says that, Izuku then opens his eyes back up. Now, he notices he's not dead, and the bullets are now on top of his shirt. Now, on top of him being healed, his shirt was also healed. Don't ask why. I just don't want him to come back home and, his mom's like, why do you have bullet holes in your shirt? I don't want to explain that. Now, he then gets back up, and now the girl looks even more freaked out. Now, the guy that's robbing her is basically like, come on now. Why do you look like you're about to have a heart attack? Now, he's worried for the girl because at this point she's looking like she's about to have a stroke. Now, as he keeps on talking, he then gets touched on the shoulder. And then he says, please do not do this. Oh my. He then looks back around and it's the boy. And he's like, I thought I shot you. And then he points the gun back at him. But as he does, Izuku then grabs the gun and engulfs his hand with neon, melting the gun's tip. Now, the guy at this point is basically freaked out. He's like, hey, now, chill. Now, Izuku turns around and then starts running, basically appearing in neon, blinding the man completely, because I just literally said that if you look directly at him, you could get blinded. And since he was directly in front of him, he was blinded. So at this point, the guy's screaming out in pain. And then the neon starts coming back. Now, the girls at one point worried because the energy that just came off him was enough to blind the man. Since she was still looking at the robber, she didn't get blinded. Now, he then runs back at him and shoots a wave of energy. Now, when you're under an amount of distress, everything goes a little bit slower. Whether you've actually experienced this or not is on you. I have. I don't know about anybody else. Now, she then sees the wave of energy isn't just a regular wave of energy. The wave of energy is engulfing the man multiple times. And it's stringing around him like a type of rope. At this point, his arms and legs are tied up. Now, the man then goes about 4 feet backwards. Now, her perception then goes back to normal. And as he hits the ground, the neon then starts to tape him towards the ground. The tape gets so powerful that even with a regular knife would be difficult to cut. So, at this point, the man's struggling to get up. Basically just screaming out in pain. And then the neon then tapes around his mouth, or goes around his mouth. Now, the woman then runs outside of the alley. And Izuku looks back at the girl running away. Now he's like, wait, can't even say thank you? Now, as he says this, he looks at the side, and he sees there's another energy coil, or just dub coil, or whatever it is. Now, he then proceeds to lift open the lid, and he then puts his hand into it, and he's like, please let this power not be able to blind someone. Now, as he touches the coil, he then starts floating up into the air and then gets a vision. He then gets a vision of turning into smoke. Now, this smoke is able to, first off, he's able to obliterate someone with this smoke by putting a mass amount of smoke into their body to the point where their body basically gets obliterated. Being able to obliterate someone with enough punches after they've been knocked out, the smoke then laces around their body and can kill them. Or, on the other side, the smoke can surround their body. Now, this is more of a smoke dash. When he dashes, his body turns into smoke. Now, unlike the game, this is in first-person mode, so he sees that as he dashes into smoke, it's not just one sight. No, all of the bits of smoke he can see out of, so it's like an infinite amount of eyes. Also, with this smoke power, he can glide, and he can basically jump higher. and use vents to dash up higher. Now, he then passes out again. And this time, no one finds him, so he gets back up about 30 minutes. And he takes the groceries and goes back home. Now, he doesn't really question what happened. He's just wondering how to use the power, because the neon power is still activated, which he's confused on how to activate the smoke power, because, you know. Now, this is where I'm going to end it off. If you guys enjoyed, I don't really give a fuck. So, I'm going to see you guys later. Enjoy this outro, or what the fuck ever. Personally think the intro was better than the outro, but, you know.
Jerry Production.
On the way, you get something back from me, shit. Shit. You gotta get it, this shit in blood, huh? Bitch, I got my own fight, don't need security in the club. All they wolfing on the neck, nigga, I thought you was a thug. I ain't got nowhere to go, I shot up everywhere they was. Yeah, you know who took this shit from you, come get it back in blood.